Chief Executive John Lee in Qatar at the start of his second official visit to the Middle East. Trump says great progress being made in U.S.-China talks over tariffs. And India and Pakistan accuse each other of ceasefire violations, though the truce is generally holding. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Chief Executive John Lee is in Doha, Qatar on the first leg of his Middle East visit. This marks his second official trip to the Middle East as Hong Kong's leader. Beginning his official visit in the Qatari capital of Doha, Chief Executive John Lee took group photos with a 60-strong delegation. He said the delegates are looking forward to the visit. They include Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong, Trade Development Council Chairman Peter Lam, and Chairman of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce Agnes Chan. For the first time, also taking part are more than 20 business representatives from mainland tech, new energy, and construction industries. The city leader wrote on his social media page that the trip aims to leverage Hong Kong's role under one country, two systems and to support Chinese enterprises in going global. He also hopes to explore investment opportunities for Hong Kong businesses and attract capital from the Middle East. The delegation's itinerary includes a visit to the Qatar Investment Authority and meetings with Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdurrahman Al Thani, and their Communications and Infotech Minister, as well as the Chinese ambassador in Qatar. The delegation is expected to sign several memoranda of understanding encompassing IT, aviation, and trade-related fields. A family office that has set its sights on the Middle East in recent years says it's crucial to get to know the local culture in advance. A Hong Kong lawmaker meanwhile says the SAR can serve as a springboard for Middle Eastern investors to tap the China market. Samantha Lee reports.
Back in 2023, Chief Executive John Lee led a delegation to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates in an effort to build more business ties. So what makes the Middle East attractive? 4 of the world's top 10 largest sovereign wealth funds are based in the Middle East, with their total assets reaching $3,500 billion. One of them, the Kuwait Investment Authority, ranks 5th in the world. Quan Chi Man's family office tapped into the Middle East market 2 years ago. He said it is crucial to understand the local culture and values when doing business with the people there. He said small talks plays an essential role in Middle Eastern culture, and it is regarded as impolite to go straight to business in meetings. Therefore, he set up in his office a room with Middle Eastern decor for casual conversations. To foster business ties, Hong Kong exchanges and clearing included the financial markets of Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai into its list of recognized stock exchanges in recent years. Lawmaker Robert Lee, who represents the financial services sector, said Hong Kong is renowned for its professionalism and legal protection. He believes the city is capable of leveraging its role as a connector to help global investors tap the China market. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Financial Secretary Paul Chan said Hong Kong's economy is projected to grow by 2 to 3% in 2025, following a 2.5% rise in 2024. The government said it would not revise its full-year GDP growth forecast because of lingering uncertainty in the global outlook, including the tariff situation. Chan also warns that exports may slow in the coming quarter. The finance chief said the recent strength of the Hong Kong dollar has led the Monetary Authority to intervene multiple times, with interbank rates plunging to their lowest since 2008. He noted the lower interest rates are positive for home buyers and businesses, but cautioned that a surge in property prices is unlikely. He projected the current fiscal year to remain roughly balanced, and if capital markets stay strong, public coffers may see a surplus. Police are searching for suspects accused of carrying dangerous weapons and furious driving in Yuen Long. Online footage shows several men standing in front of a red-topped minibus, which suddenly crashes into a car. Some of the men were knocked down before they could escape. The van continued to move forward, but it reversed and struck the vehicle again. The van turned around and sped off. The scene happened on Saturday around 10 a.m. on Tai Tong Road in Yuen Long, where the police received a report of a fight. Sources say those men were armed with weapons at the time. The police are looking for the minibus and related people involved in the incident. Xia Baolong, director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, was on day 4 of his visit to Macau today. He met with local National People's Congress deputies, Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference members, and lawmakers. Discussions focused on Macau's economic outlook amid China-U.S. tensions and the strategic development of the Hengqin area. Xia stressed Beijing's support for Macau's diversified economic growth and praised the new administration's initiatives. He also visited the Legislative Council for a roundtable discussion with all members. U.S. President Donald Trump said great progress was being made in U.S.-China talks over tariffs, even suggesting a total reset was on the table. Talks are continuing today in Geneva, Switzerland, though no major breakthrough was announced on Saturday after around 10 hours of discussions. The meetings are aimed at resolving the tariff war between the U.S. and China that is dragging down the global economy. Nasri Karim has more.
Mr. Secretary, how are you? How hopeful are you, sir?
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent leaves his hotel in Geneva this morning for day 2 of trade talks with Chinese negotiators. Bessent and Chinese officials did not say anything after more than 10 hours of talks on Saturday. They didn't need to because U.S. President Donald Trump was happy to provide an update. Trump went to his Truth Social account to hail trade talks in Geneva between U.S. and Chinese officials, despite low expectations of any major breakthrough. A very good meeting with China, wrote Trump. Many things discussed, much agreed to. A total reset negotiated in a friendly but constructive manner. We want to see, for the good of both China and the U.S., an opening up of China to American business. Great progress made. Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng and his team are resuming talks with Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer in Geneva, reportedly at the residence of Switzerland's ambassador to the UN. The talks are aimed at resolving the tariff dispute that has played havoc with markets around the world and is threatening to bring down the global economy. Trump has slapped up to 145% tariffs on most Chinese goods, while Beijing retaliated by imposing 125% tariffs on a variety of American products. The U.S. wants to reduce its $295 billion trade deficit with China and persuade Beijing to roll back what Washington says is a mercantilist economic model and contribute more to global consumption. Earlier at the White House, Trump appeared to soften his stance towards China, hinting that the tariff could come down to 80%. Before the talks, China insisted that it remained opposed to any kind of tariff. In an editorial on Saturday, Xinhua news agency said the talks came about at the request of the U.S., and China only agreed to attend after considering global expectations, national interest and appeals from U.S. businesses and consumers. It said China would firmly reject any proposal that compromises its core principles and undermines global equity. Nasri Karim, TVB News.
A fragile ceasefire was holding between India and Pakistan today after hours of overnight fighting between the two nuclear-armed neighbors. U.S. President Donald Trump said he would work towards providing a solution for Kashmir, the border province that both sides claim. Hours after the truce went into effect, both sides accused each other of violating the pact. Nasri Karim with more.
Lights over the night sky in Srinagar on the Indian side of the Kashmir line of control. Explosions can be heard. This, says India, happened on Saturday night after the two sides agreed to a ceasefire.
For the last few hours, there have been repeated violations of the understanding arrived at earlier this evening between the Directors General of Military Operations of India and Pakistan. We call upon Pakistan to take appropriate steps to address these violations and deal with the situation with seriousness and responsibility.
Pakistan said it was committed to the ceasefire and blamed India for the violations. Addressing the nation, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said his country had responded positively to the ceasefire agreement. The ceasefire was reportedly brokered by the U.S., with President Donald Trump earlier praising both countries for agreeing to the deal and vying to boost trade. Pakistan said Saudi Arabia and Turkey were involved in mediating the truce. In a statement, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomed the ceasefire as a positive step towards ending the current hostilities and easing tensions. In Karachi, supporters of the ruling Pakistan Muslim League held a rally to celebrate the ceasefire announcement. Life appears to go on as normal in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. This man said the ceasefire was a moment of happiness. We are peaceful people, he said. We don't want chaos or war. In India-controlled Jammu, this man said it was excellent news. War gives us nothing, he said. Innocent people die. Today, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting with top government and military officials. As part of the ceasefire, the nuclear-armed neighbours agreed to immediately stop all firing and military action on land, in the air and at sea. The fighting started on Wednesday, 2 weeks after 26 tourists were killed in Indian Kashmir, with India blaming Pakistan of backing the massacre. Pakistan denied any responsibility. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
And still ahead, Putin offers direct peace talks with Ukraine in Istanbul, and Zelensky wants a halt to attacks before agreeing to attend. Pope Leo calls for no more war in his first Sunday message to crowds in St. Peter's Square. And Uruguay sets up a new consulate in Hong Kong. Welcome back. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says he welcomes Russia's offer for direct peace talks and has called Vladimir Putin's ceasefire proposal positive. The Russian leader has invited Ukraine to direct talks without preconditions in Istanbul on Thursday. But Zelensky wants a stop to attacks before agreeing to attend. David Garrett reports.
Volodymyr Zelensky pleased with what he termed Russia engaging to find an end to the war, but suggesting he wants a ceasefire before talks. The Ukrainian president posting that the entire world's been waiting for this for a very long time, and the very first step in truly ending any war is a ceasefire. There's no point in continuing the killing, Zelensky wrote on X. We expect Russia to confirm a ceasefire, full, lasting and reliable, starting tomorrow, and Ukraine is ready to meet. A good evening from Vladimir Putin ahead of the late-night statement which prompted Zelensky's remarks on X. The Russian president calling for serious negotiations with Ukraine without preconditions in Istanbul on Thursday, where negotiations were held before. Putin referencing unsuccessful talks in the same city at the start of the war in 2022. Using paper notes for reference, Putin continued, "A truce is possible." Putin then spoke of possible sustainable peace and argued against a prolonged war, which would see the replenishment of Ukraine's army. Putin saying before Zelensky's social media message, it's up to Ukraine and their curators. This appeared to mean the European leaders who travelled to Kiev. The French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, UK and Polish Prime Ministers Keir Starmer and Donald Tusk stood with Zelensky under the banner of the Coalition of the Willing. A joint statement from the nations called for an increase in pressure on Putin. More sanctions would be imposed on Moscow unless there is a 30-day land, air and sea ceasefire. If Putin does not agree, these leaders were clear they will strengthen their position.
You are on the right side of history because you protect your sovereignty, your territory, and doing so, you are at the forefront as well of the protection of the whole European territory and what we built after the Second World War.
Putin's goal is to procrastinate and not make substantive concessions. It is therefore essential that we keep the United States on board and convince President Trump. Ukraine is not the problem. It is extremely constructive. It is Russia that does not move unless we increase pressure.
This pressure may have prompted the Russian response from Putin and his offer of direct talks in Istanbul. Putin finished by thanking foreign partners, naming China, Brazil, countries of Africa, the Middle East and the new administration of the US. Putin leaving without any mention of the Coalition of the Willing or a 30-day ceasefire. David Garrett, TVB News.
Pope Leo XIV called for peace in Ukraine as he delivered his first Sunday blessing from the Vatican balcony to huge crowds. Elected this week, the Pope waved to the thousands who had waited through the morning in St. Peter's Square. From noon Rome time, the new Pope spoke and called on the world's major powers for no more war. Leo mentioned Ukraine and asked for more aid to be allowed into Gaza and Israeli hostages to be returned. Leo also welcomed the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, saying he is praying to God to grant the world the miracle of peace. The pontiff made mention of Mother's Day, wishing all mothers, including those in heaven, a happy Mother's Day. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is on a 5-day visit to China, arriving late last night at the invitation of President Xi. Both leaders had been in Moscow this week for Victory Day. Lula says he wants to establish new partnerships. China has recently increased imports of Brazilian soybean and is in discussions to build a rail link between Brazil and Peru. The South American nation of Uruguay officially set up a consulate in Hong Kong on Friday, with the country's foreign minister now on his first official visit to China. As this year marks the 70th anniversary of the beginning of trade relations between the two countries, their diplomats shared with TVB News their plans to boost business ties with China. Bordering South American giants Brazil and Argentina, Uruguay is home to 3.4 million people, just around half of the population of Hong Kong. Hailed the Switzerland of South America, what Uruguay might lack in size, it makes up for in economic prowess and a green vision. It boasts the highest GDP per capita in South America until 2024, overtaken just recently by Guyana. Uruguay's capital Montevideo also tops Mercer's Quality of Living Index in the region. Around a month after Uruguayan President Yamandu Orsi took office in March, the country's foreign minister Mario Lubekin is now undertaking a trip to China and the SAR, having met Chief Executive John Lee and Cui Jianchun, Commissioner of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hong Kong. As Uruguay generates up to 98% of its electricity from renewable energy, Fernando Lugris, the ambassador of Uruguay to China, hopes to forge more green energy collaboration projects.
The most important project ongoing in the country in the field of infrastructure is being done by a Chinese company, and it's to boost our interconnection of energy, clean energy in the country. So I believe that the area of clean energy and electric mobility will be two of the most important ones in the future projects.
The latest China CELAC forum with Latin American and Caribbean countries will take place in Beijing coming Tuesday, and Uruguay is poised to assume the rotating presidency of CELAC in 2026. The ambassador hopes it will be a platform to not just elevate comprehensive strategic partnership with China, but also ensure peace and security in the region. With its new consulate general set up in Hong Kong and the bilateral commodity trade between the city and Uruguay having jumped 8.8% year-on-year in 2024, topping $120 million, Uruguay's newly minted consul general hopes to introduce the country's business edge to Hong Kong. One of the first initiatives of Uruguay's consulate in Hong Kong is to roll out a working holiday program, which is currently under discussion with the SAR government. It aims to provide dozens of spots to encourage cultural and people-to-people exchanges between the two sides.
We also serve as a logistics hub for South America and a business services hub because we have free trade zones that make it very efficient to provide services from them in Uruguay to the rest of the Americas.
And today is Mother's Day. Many residents across the city flock to flower markets to search for the perfect bouquets for their mothers. At the Macau Flower Market this afternoon, many flower shops presented their wrapped bouquets. The most popular choices are carnations and roses. Residents came to pick the perfect bouquets for their loved ones. A floral seller was seeing more demand this year than the previous years. Meanwhile, many residents took their families to dine in some Cantonese restaurants. This one in Mongkok saw a full house during lunch hour. And that's the news. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching.